Hello and welcome to Did I Fix That? And today I'm going to be working on replacing what I believe to be the strut mounts, upper mounts in the front of the vehicle. I've got a pesky kind of like groaning noise when I turn. I've investigated this the best I can. It sounds like it radiates up and down the strut springs, and the noise is only present when there's a load on the suspension or weight on the car, if you will. If I jack up the front end and move it, there's no noise. It doesn't appear to be any of the bushings. I believe it to be the mount. This could be a fool's errand that I'm on right now, but here's the noise that I have. You can hear it. Hear that noise when I turn the steering wheel. So it might be. Hopefully you can hear that. It's not terribly loud, but it is enough to just kind of bother me a little bit. So I'm going to work on that. So I just wanted you to hear what was going on inside the car, and I did order some new bump stops and the mounts and the bearings. Hello and welcome back. So like I said earlier, we're going to replace the strut bearing, mount, and bump stop. Here's the parts I got from FCP Euro. There's a bump stop, bearing hat, if you will, or dust seal, and the actual strut mount. As far as tools, specialized tools that you'll need, you can do this job without even having a strut compressor. You will need this tie rod end separator. I got this one at Harbor Freight. It was roughly 15 bucks. Really the only kind of specialized tools you need are a socket set, some of these Torx drives. This one happens to be a Torque a T55. I also did use a T40 and a H7, so this is a hexagonal. First thing to do really, obviously loosen your lug nuts while they're on the ground so you can get adequate torque on them to break it. Then come up top side of the vehicle. We're going to remove the plastic here. Just a little trim piece pops right out. And then we'll take this piece. I did take this other piece off that's right here. Take this off. And here we have access to the top of the strut. So we're going to take this plastic cap off. And just to kind of help ourselves out, got a little, you can use whatever penetrating oil you have. Just trying to help myself out. It's a little rusty. I'm going to spray a little there to kind of let that soak a little bit, kind of help ourselves out. Next thing we need to do is jack up the car. Well, actually, while I'm up here, I might as well go ahead and break these loose. 3 bolts there. We're going to use a, let's see, is it it's a 13 millimeter. Break those 3 loose and we'll be right back. All right, so I've got my wheel off, as you can see. Broken these loose, these 3 mounting bolts. I haven't removed them yet, just kind of letting them hang there. Now, next thing I'm going to do is take my my Torx 55 and break these caliper bolts loose. Put those in there and break loose. There we go. Get one more swing on that, then I can get a regular socket on it easily. Okay, got that one loose and this one loose. All right, just kind of loosen them. I'm not taking the caliper off at this point. Then I'm gonna grab some more of my penetrating oil and I'm gonna get this tie rod bolt right there. Get that one little penetrating oil on that. There we go. All right, so and it lives right back there. You can see that. Okay, so we got that. We got our brakes loose. Now we got a couple of 10 millimeters we have to take off this one. And there's another one back here on the back side of the wheel mount right there. Two 10 millimeter bolts. And we're going to break this connection here by just merely lifting it up. Well, that little safety shield came off. And pay particular attention to the location of these wires. So the one with the tag goes closest to the outside. I'm going to take that one off. Just kind of wiggle them out. Okay. And that one's out, and then this one. There we go. They're both out. So I'm going to break this connection loose, break the other one that secures the hard line. Then I'm going to take my caliper, I'm going to swing it around, and I'm actually going to take this line out here, this rubber line with the wires in it. Just pops out of this connector in the back. You can just push it out with your thumb. It's not a big deal. And then I'm going to use some zip ties and zip tie this to my mount back here, just so we don't put any undue stress on my brake line. So I'm going to do all that and I'll tune back in. Okay, so I probably lied to you on the location of the two bolts. One was obviously here where the electrical connector was, and the other one was back here where the hard line connected. So I've got my, as you can see, I've got my brake caliper zip tied, just suspending it so we're not putting any stress on our flex line or hard line. So now grab a 19 millimeter socket. We're going to break our tie rod end loose. I might have kind of broke it loose off camera, but it wasn't that tight, to be quite honest with you. All right, so let's see here. Is that coming on? Almost off. So once we have this loose, what we're going to do is we're going to grab our tie rod separator, which is this puppy here. We're going to put the fork down on the bottom side and put the lip or jaw or whatever you want to call it up on top of the bolt there. I'm just going to press down and drive that out. Hard to do it one-handed, so I'm going to tune out for a second, put it on, and then I'll tighten it up and show you how this thing works. Okay, so I've got the tie rod on, separator on. As you can see, I just tighten down like this with my socket, and eventually this thing should let loose, get enough tension on it, and it'll pop on off for us. And the other side kind of sounded like a 22 rifle going off or something when it decides to go. There you go. That's what it sounds like when it comes off. Rather violent, but now we can take our tie rod off completely. That's it. So this thing now is kind of free, but to help ourselves out, we're going to reattach it just to kind of hold it on there so that we can have access to this bolt back here, or because that holds our sway bar linkage to the strut mount. So we need to loosen this bolt up. This can be a little finicky. The issue is that you will have a nut here, right there. That's a 17 millimeter, and the space is so thin, and there's kind of a ridge on that bolt, so it's kind of hard to get a wrench in there to hold it. But put your 17 millimeter in there, and this side, I believe, is an 18 millimeter. And maybe just verify that here. 18. Yeah, 18. So we're gonna work on that and I'll tune back in just a second. So you can see now I've got a 17mm wedged on that, and you can see the flange on both sides of that bolt. It's very difficult to get at, but got my 18mm and I'm backing this out. Have this off in 2 seconds here. All right, so the next thing we gotta do is use a 20mm socket on the top of this strut compression bolt. I'm not sure exactly what they call it, retention bolt. And we're gonna break that loose. I got my breaker bar in there. Hopefully it'll let loose. There it goes. Okay. And we just kind of loosen that up a little bit. So there. All right. And now we're gonna break our tie rod end loose again. That's off, tie rod out. And then we can slide our bolt out that was holding in our sway bar linkage. It's hard to do everything one-handed, sorry folks. That'll just slide out. Now, come back up the top side, loosen, take these out all the way, and I will do that, and then everything will be free. And I'll show you how to get the strut out from there without using a spring compression tool. All right, so now I've got all 3 bolts loose. Everything is loose down below. Just double check everything and make sure that you're clear. You're not hanging up on any lines or anything. Some other people have had to loosen this to get additional bolt to get additional clearance. No need to do that. So just kind of drop this thing down and just kind of pull on it. And there, the strut's loose. Then I'm just going to step on this and we'll get it out. I get my foot on it. Hold on. Okay, so definitely a two-handed job, but basically just, you know, pull it down to get it out from the strut mount, out of the holes in the body and the inner fender. Once that's clear, I just use my bolts that hold in the brake caliper, push down on that, and you'll pop underneath the lip of the fender and you're out. So now, keep in mind, this is under some tension, but I'll go ahead and pop that off real quick, and I'll tell you what happens without the spring compression tool on there. All right, so I've got that H7 and a 21mm open end that I'm holding it with, and trying to do this here one-handed, and it's damn near impossible, but there's like no tension at all on this sucker right now. So that being said, do keep your head away from it. I'm sure the safety police on YouTube will be getting on me for this one, because these things usually are under tremendous tension, but we'll go ahead and keep on working. It's just so loose I can turn it by hand. So here we go. Should about be off by now. Surprised it's not. There it goes. That was all the tension that was on it. So now just take our mount off, and we need to retain that metal collar. I'll pop that on in just a second, and we'll take the spring off just for a little bit. Ear washer, spacer, boot, knock out our old bump stop, and take that out. Get out of there. All right, bump stop out. All right, so we're gonna put our new one in. This is what they look like, just straight down over the top. I'm gonna kind of put everything roughly back together and I'll tune back in. All right, old is out. This is what they look like. And it sounds pretty gritty. New one. Doesn't sound a whole lot better. This might be a fool's errand. But at any rate, got the bump stop in. spacer in, washer on top of it. We'll jam the whole assembly back into the car, put the spring on it, put this up through, put the strut mount up through, and notice they have arrows pointing to front and back, or not front and back, but along the lines of the car. So what we do next is pop this mount up through and just put the bolts on there just to hold it in place loosely. We don't need to tighten them yet. We're just gonna put them in there. So I'm gonna do that and then we'll tune back in. All right, so now I've got my jack on the bottom of the A-arm. I've got my spring in and it's indexed into this little detent down here. So it's up against that as far as it'll go. Got the strut mount in. I've got the strut going through the little tiny hole up there. And I did forget to put my washer in. I'm gonna do that. And so I had to drop the mount back down, put that in. Now I'm gonna jack up the strut. We should start seeing that come through. And once that does, we're going to put a little, we're gonna put our nut on there and then drop it back down, and we're gonna tighten it on there. So I'm gonna fiddle fart around with that until I get the nut to come back up through, or the bolt to come through. Okay, here it comes up through, so there we go. It's lifting the washer off. Bingo. All right, so now I'm gonna put my nut on there and lower it back down. And the reason for that is I need to tighten that using my I think it was a H7 and my 21mm wrench. So we'll do that now. All right, now I have my strut mount started, the bolt started, pulled it back out so that I can tighten it on. And I'm just using my H7 socket down in the middle of the strut rod, and then using a 21mm to hold that nut, and just cranking it down. And so just kind of tightening in that. I'm going to tighten it until it is compressed down as far as I can get it. I don't have a torque spec on that, but basically it wasn't on there, you know, crazy tight. It's probably 50 to 60 pounds. Thanks. Okay, I'm taking advantage of my camera woman right now, but what I'm going to do, I've got my arrows on my mount going along the lines of the car, you can see. Then I'm going to step on the bolt down here and push the whole assembly up underneath the car. So just kind of get it in rough approximate space. Turn around, push down on this, and kind of guide it up in underneath the car. Try not to scratch the paint when you're doing that. And it's hard to do with flip-flops on and a bunch of crap in the way, but let's try it one more time. In there, it's underneath the car. Now, just position it here, and you'll get it. Basically, now we're roughly aligned. Grab your jack, put it underneath the A-arm, start jacking up a little bit. You kind of guide it into place now. So, position it like that. And this is all you do. And you have basically got this sucker back in. Real life struggles here, people. Alright, there. From top side. Okay. There we go. Alright. And as you can see, if you look from the top side here, we've got in there. That's it. 1, 2, 3. Pop your 13mm nuts back on, and your good to go. And we'll do that in a minute. I think these are torqued to about 35 foot-pounds. And we'll continue on in just a second. So the next thing we need to do is start assembling everything and torquing things down. The tie rod one here is 56 foot-pounds. This strut to wheel hub, or whatever you want to call it here, this pinch bolt back here is going to be 63 foot-pounds, and the brake hardware to hold the caliper on are 63 pounds as well. And I believe these two little fiddly bolts that kind of hold the brake line and the sensor lines, that one there and the one on the back side right here, are like 10 or 12 pounds, or nothing major. Now to get this tie rod one tight, you're going to need a 18mm wrench, as well as a T40 socket that goes right down in the top of the tie rod, because if you try to torque on it and tighten it, it's going to spin on you. So you need to put the T40 down in the center of that bolt right there. Then also you're going to use a 17mm to hold that one from spinning. And you see how it has this flange on that nut right there, and it's kind of tough to get it. You have to have a really thin wrench to get in there and hold it, but I've found that the best thing to do is just to jam it on there with it apart like that, then push everything in, tighten it up, and then take your wrench out later. Now, also, you probably want to put a load on the car while you're torquing everything. So what I'll do is, roughly put everything together, and then place a load on it with my jack. So I'm gonna jack it up and then torque everything down. Because if not, I guess there can be potential issues. They say you're supposed to torque everything down with it loaded on the vehicle. So that's pretty much it. I'll take it for a test drive in a little bit, and I will report back to you guys if that fixed my groaning bearing issue or groaning noise I was having inside the vehicle. All right, thanks for watching.